In today's video, we're going to talk about off-camera flash for your Fujifilm camera, why you would want to use it, what you need, and how to set it up. So there are many use cases to use off-camera flash, whether it is for portrait photography, product photography, food photography. The overall goal is to be able to control the intensity and the direction of the light that is reaching your subject, and to basically have your speed light or strobe trigger at the moment that you press the sensor. Now there are some speed lights that are directly mounted on the top of your camera. However, by using those, you are limited by the direction from which the light reaches your subject. Having a speed light directly mounted to your camera can be extremely useful when it comes to event photography or maybe wedding photography, where you need the flexibility to move around and you don't want to have to set your light every single time, but you will be limited by the direction and the power of the light that comes from this kind of speed light. So if you're looking to do product, food, or maybe portrait photography in a controlled environment with control light, then I would suggest you to learn about off-camera flash. Now it's time to talk about what you will need. So the first thing is a camera that supports flash with a shoe mount. The next thing that you're gonna need is a transmitter that is both compatible with your camera and the strobe that you chose. In my case, I chose a Godox X Pro F for Fujifilm, paired with an 8300 Pro. So the reason why I like Godox, and by the way they are not sponsoring this video, is that they propose affordable, good quality speed lights, strobes or continuous light. So definitely check them out if you want to purchase a speed light or a strobe. I've been using them for about 1.5 years now and never had any problem with their products. One more thing that you might need is a light modifier. In my case, I use this particular softbox from Godox that is compatible with the strobe that I'm using. And I really like this one because it is portable, easily foldable, and pretty much I can bring it everywhere I go if I need to shoot on location or maybe outside. Alright, so now that you understand what you need, let's move to how to set it up to make it work. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know that the first thing that you always need to do is to set your composition first. You don't want to set all your light and everything and then realize that your composition is crap and that you have to move everything around again. So first, set your composition. Once you're satisfied with your composition, let's add on the lights. You will want to mount your strobe or your speed light on a tripod and position it approximately where you want the light to come from. Once you're done with this, mount the diffuser on and just turn your flash on. The next step is to mount your transmitter on the top of your camera by placing it on top of your shoe mount, and make sure that it is properly fixed there and locked, because you don't want your transmitter to fall to the ground and break. Turn on your transmitter and your camera and make sure that your camera is set to use flash. As an example, on the Fujifilm X-T4, go to Menu, Flash Settings, and make sure that your flash mode is set to TTL. Now your camera should be able to communicate to your transmitter. The next step is to make sure that the transmitter and the strobe are connected together. The way transmitter and strobe or speed light communicate together is through groups and channels. Each group, which has a letter, A, B, C, D, E in the case of the transmitter that I'm using, and each of this particular group has different channels. So in my case, I'm going to set my transmitter to communicate on channel 17 with the group A. I am also going to set my strobe to be on the same channel and the same group. Now, if you make sure that both your transmitter and your speed light are on the same channel and the same group, by pressing the shutter button of your camera, you should see your flash going on. That means that your setup is correctly done. Alright, so now that your setup is done, you might want to adjust your exposure using your strobe. The first thing that you would want to do is to disable from your screen the white balance and exposure preview. Now this is not a must, but sometimes you will have to underexpose extremely your image based on natural light, and it might be difficult to see your subject and to properly focus on it. But please remember, if you do this, to re-enable it after, because you might have some surprise where you can see that your images are completely overexposed or underexposed while you don't see it on your EVF or your screen. Let's now move on to our exposure triangle. Your camera has a maximum shutter speed value at which it can operate with a flash. Above this shutter speed, you will start seeing some dark area on your image, which is due to the fact of the curtain closing too fast for the sync speed between the camera, the transmitter and the speedlight. In case of the X-T4, the maximum sync speed is at 1/250 of a second. So I know that I must keep my shutter speed below this value. Usually I tend to set it up at 1/125 to start, so that's what I'm gonna do here. Next, you want to set your aperture based on what you want to capture. In general, when I work with products, food or portrait, in a controlled environment, I don't necessarily need the shallow depth of field, so I usually set my aperture to f8 to start. And finally, when it comes to ISO, I basically set it to its minimum value. Using a strobe allows me to basically control the amount of light that I want to throw at my subject, so I usually keep my ISO minimum to keep the quality of the picture as good as possible. Now what I want you to do next is to just try and shoot a picture and see how the light on your subject looks like. If your picture is overexposed, you might want to decrease the power intensity of your flash. If it is underexposed, you might want to increase it. Now, if it is still underexposed while you're reaching the maximum power of your flash, then you might want to bring it closer to your subject. And from here, it's just an iterative process. You might want to adjust that distance. You might want to adjust the angle of the light. So just play around with the position of your light. And once you're satisfied, just keep that picture. Now, there are many more things to know about off-camera flash, and I cannot sum it up in only one video. But I think that those basics will allow you to get started and to experiment first with the off-camera flash. If you enjoyed this video and you want to know more about off-camera flash, then let me know in the comment and I will make more videos on the subject. Thank you for watching today's video, and if you missed it, check out this video right here where I talk about exposure and how to nail it every single time on your Fujifilm camera. See you there.